here to share our experiences using our Socratic seminar across grade levels and extracurricular activities. And what is Socratic seminar? As you can see, Mortimer Adler states a mode of teaching by asking questions, inviting discussions, helping students raise their minds up from a state of understanding or appreciating less to a state of understanding or appreciating more. And as I say to my students, it's just an adult conversation. It will give you an insight and you will become wiser. And they take it and they run with it from there. What is Socratic seminar? As you can see, teaching strategy, a formal discussion based on text, open-ended questions, but not just text. You can put a picture up. You can throw a question out from the newspaper article for that day. And it requires students to think critically, to address abstract ideas, actively listen, and articulate ideas clearly in their own language. As I was saying, it's students' discourse, students study the text closely, cooperative activities, expression of belief without fear of reprisal. There is no right or wrong answer. Promote student learning and inquiry without posing definitive questions to answer. It gives them freedom. For example, my first seminar was on Christmas Carol. And the skill activities that I chose were to compare and contrast, symbolism, conflict and resolution, author's point of view, interactive word walls, inferring, theme, etc. And these activities guided my questions, such as, the text refers to three spirits. Which spirit do you feel had the most influence on Scrooge, and tell why you feel the spirit was important in causing him to change in the text? Another question was, Marley's chains are symbolic in the text. What do you feel they symbolize and why? At the moment, we're doing Friendo, and these students, I have these questions for mine. They have grown so much, they thought of their own questions for Friendo, for their Socratic seminar. And here's one. How can words have an impact on society? The author and illustrator used symbolism throughout the story. How did the symbolism help paint a picture of the story? And these were student questions that they made. Our goals is to learn the basic elements of a Socratic seminar, learn how to plan for the seminar, the close read of a text, prepare seminar questions based on the close read, and participate in a short seminar today with us. And why is it important to do Socratic? It uses a variety of activities to develop thinking and cooperative learning, which leads to accepting differences of opinion. The participants in classroom use Socratic will give the students more ownership or more voice. And that's just this in a nutshell. Common Core State Standards has enabled me personally to use it in a concise manner that helps me check for understanding. And not just me checking for the students' understanding, but an understanding of myself. It makes me reflect on my teaching and all the activities that led to this day, and how can I make them better. And what's the role of the teacher? It's accountable talk. It's to guide accountable talk. As I said to you, to become an adult and speak like an adult, without argument, without reprisal, without being wrong. You're right. As long as you can prove it, you can state it, you are right. This is important.
So, where do you begin? And the first thing you begin is figuring out what you want your kids to know. And for kindergarten, my first one, and unfortunately, we did videotape it, but my computer drive crashed, so I don't have that information. We did it on space. I wanted them to learn about space, where they could go, why is it important to go there, about the stars. And it was driven not because I wanted to do it, it's because my 5-year-olds kept going, I want to go to space, I want to learn about space. And so I took what they wanted and gave it to them. Now the second Socratic, I decided I wanted to do a habitat. And so not only me, but the other 2 kindergarten teachers are also doing habitats. I'm doing the Arctic and the Antarctic. Miss Halsad, who's not here, is doing the rainforest, and Miss Green and Conyers are doing the savanna. So we all took a different one, but our big ideas and what we do about it is the same. So once you know what you want to teach, you need to pick a text. Where do you find the text? What do you want to use? You know, whether it's the little kids or the big kids, what do you want to get your kids to do from it? And so part of what makes Socratic nice is that everybody has a copy of the text. Now when you're looking at little people, I take a book, and the current book I'm using is a book called Ice is Nice, and it was written in like Dr. Seuss fashion. I photocopy the key important pages of information I want them to have so that they can have and manipulate. When you're dealing with older kids, middle school, high school, 4th and 5th graders, they will have their own text in front of them, a novel, whatever they're reading, Frindle, Christmas Carol, I believe you're doing Rosa Parks. That'll be in front of them. So for the little people, you can photocopy it. And what's nice about having that photocopy for them is they get to work within the text as well. So when I teach them those big ideas and that big information, they have the words. So for example, camouflage is one of the words I'm teaching my 5-year-olds. Well, it's in there in the book. It's the definition. My kids can tell you camouflage helps an animal to hide, which is the basic definition. And now we can go through and we can find sight words. So it's a great way for them to do word work with the kids as well. So what we did, text can be anything. It's not just a book. It can be a film. I believe you showed A Christmas Carol when Miss Spears Bishop was doing hers. She showed A Christmas Carol. So they got to see video clips as well as read the story. It can be charts. It can be a word problem. So this is not something that can be just done in literacy. It does cross the curriculum. And when we talk about it in literacy as far as learning about the Arctic and the Antarctic, it crosses over into math, it crosses over into social studies, it crosses over into science. And it's as simple as, with the little kids, changing the text out. So when I do my lesson plans, so you don't think it's like this extra hard activity to do, instead of using a book that was within Journeys or whatever reading book series you're using, I'll pull out Ice is Nice and I'll use it. Or I'll pull out Magic School Bus presents the polar animals, and use those books, but still teach the same skills that I would have normally taught for my lesson. So if my lesson says I'm teaching syllabication, I'm going to use those books, but I'm going to use words within those books to teach syllabication so that they get the background information and get the skills. So I'm not creating a double lesson, so to speak. So what we started with for you guys is to choose a text. And the text has to be thought-provoking, and it has to have big ideas, and it has to be complex, and it has to be ambiguous. It has to do a lot of things. So what we did in your packet, you'll find you have the Pledge of Allegiance. This is going to be your text for today. We chose this text because, well, we've worked with it before. Now, once you've chosen your text, you have to make sure it has a couple of things to make sure it's an appropriate mentor text to use. And the first thing you need to look at with it is a sheet. And it has 102 basic ideas. And you need to find big ideas. Your text needs to have big ideas. Now, my Ice is Nice talked about animals and talked about evolution, family, life and death, nature, progress, science, world, habitat, beauty, and change. Those are all the big ideas that I got out of Ice is Nice for my little kids. But what we would like you to do at this point is to look at this sheet of big ideas and look at the Pledge of Allegiance and see what the big ideas are in the Pledge of Allegiance that you could pull out that would make this a good mentor text to use for a Socratic discussion. We'll give you a couple of minutes.
So you may turn and talk.
Turn and talk, and then we'll scribe some information for you.
don't know. We're busy. No, I let me get my stuff. It wasn't officially registered.
You should read your text first and then get your big ideas when you turn it.
Okay. Pledge of Allegiance. Sons.
Big ideas. And here's some number lists. Oh, just read your text and then figure out the words.
When you look at your big ideas, you go through these words, and you think, what can I find that applies to the Pledge of Allegiance?
It can be multiple.
Yes, you'll find normally when there's selecting text, there's 5 or 6 big ideas, and maybe as you go through, you may add another one. First off, I'd like freedom. That would be the first one I pick. And if it's not on there, I'd add it. Because this is a living document. This changes.
I like what I hear over here. They're saying not to impose your own ideas as the facilitator, have the students come up with their own. Good discussion.
Why you putting flowers on? Justice for all. And I have the word same.
Emotion, government, God,
What? It's the same as this one.
perseverance,
I have to be different.
justice, honor. I like
You're
honor.
that person.
We could do the same.
Alright, let's start bringing it back and let's see what each group can kind of come up with some big ideas.
1 more minute to go. 1 more minute to go.
In our classroom.
Other than that, in the hall.
Too big.
It's on their heart.
It should be a mural.
Laminated cards.
Nice.
And it ends with
It's just about that time to share out.
the last line of something. Yeah. But it's just like she picked up on that last line and just, the rest of it.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to share out.
So why don't we start with my, yeah, I have to, you know.
We came up with some big ideas of faith, family, sign and symbol, courage, respect, citizenship, one of many.
How about that back table with Naomi and Mr. Thea? What big ideas? See, I know some of my people. What big ideas did you guys find? Did you find some of the same? Did you find ones that were different?
We
or more?
mentioned allegiance, freedom, unity, justice.
You said liberty, justice.
with this group right in the middle. What ones have you seen? What can you add?
Patriotism, immigration, promises, oaths, honor,
You said oath.
immigration, and democracy.
Democracy.
I believe that's Mr. Yano's table in the back.
Mr.
You wanna add to this, please?
Equality, perseverance,
Perseverance.
religion, power,
You said power.
yeah,
And we can close out with Columbus again up here in the front. Would you like to add? Did you have more words?
We say pride. Symbolism. Also say the Constitution is a part as well.
Okay.
So as you can see, just this one small text has a lot of really great big ideas, but that's not the only thing that makes it a good mentor text. As we start looking at it, mentor texts do need a few more things. And there is a rubric that we've included to help you guys do that. One of the things is, does it address multiple ideas and values of great complexity and inspire multiple viewpoints? Is it both evocative and ambiguous? Does it have at least 5 of those great big ideas? Well, the pledge definitely has more than 5 of those great big ideas. My ice is nice. I narrowed it down, but I had like something like 17 or 18 big ideas I could have done with my nice is ice. Same thing with the text that I used for the space one. There was a lot of stuff, a lot of big ideas. I know, Sharon, you had a ton of big ideas also, yes. And I'm sure with Octavia, when you did yours, there was a lot of big ideas. Big ideas are the easiest ones to find. Does it have a universal relevance and integrity that participants readily discover individual relevance? So like, are the kids going to relate to the text and why? And does it address 4 or more key concepts with clear curriculum connection? So it goes right back. How does this relate to what you're already doing within your classroom? Now, when you look at the Pledge of Allegiance, we gave you a copy of the rubric. The pledge, does it meet those criteria? Does it fall in a 4 or a 3? You really want it to fall mostly in the 4 and 3 category here. You don't want it in the 2 or 1s. And if you want to look at the rubric to see exactly, there's a pink one, there's a white one, I believe. There. That would be the key. So if you look, just take a second to look at the rubric, and you can see, and then you say, oh yeah, I see how the pledge can be used in language arts to do speaking and listening, or I can see how I'm going to use it in social studies to teach history.
this one you can add the total. This one, you look at it and you say, thank you. And if it does, you put it 3 or 4, I want it.
Really are looking for.
Is this Steve's or is this
That's what I see on the rubric.
You know what, and true. It is not something that is going to be a simple read. Even with kindergarten, I read the book a lot of times. It's not just a one read only. It is a several read. It's a dig in. It is discuss and talk to each other about the text. It's looking at the vocabulary. So like, for example, again, I'll go back to with my ice is nice. My kids, we talked about big words like adaptation, camouflage. We talked about life and death issues. We talked about global warming because that was all in the parameters of this text. My kids can tell you how penguins toboggan and how blubber keeps animals warm because we not only read it once, we read it like every single time. It's what I'll tell you in my lesson plans. I can tell you countless times you will see Ice is Nice as the book we read because what happens is the more you read it, the more they're starting to understand the vocabulary, the more they're starting to get that big idea and they become comfortable with the text. It's not just, I'm going to read it once and we're going to do it. With adults and what we're doing here, it's a little different because you are adults. You have prior knowledge to the Pledge of Allegiance. It's not just we're throwing a text that you didn't know at you. You know the pledge. You said it every day growing up when you were at school. You know what those words mean. But for a kid, this is where those pre-activities, and we'll talk about pre-activities, come into play to help them better understand that text so that you can have that discussion.
May I add something, Ms.
Go ahead.
We always say the word decompose in math. You're decomposing a paragraph, a text, a character, in order to get that end result. Perfect understanding, insight,
And a connection to another curriculum
and a
area.
connection to another.
So what seminar comes down to is that discussion. And there's my little license, nice like that. All right. So what it comes down to are the questions. There are 3 types of questions that you do ask at a seminar. You have an opening question. Oh, did I skip? Oh, I'm sorry. I skipped slides. I jumped. Pre-seminar activities, and I actually have. If you click one more, you'll see. There should be another photo. There we go. This is where it's important. This is the important part to do, to have that conversation when you have that discussion. If you don't have the background knowledge for your kids, that discussion is not going to happen the way you want it to happen. So as you can see, and you can see in this picture, we're doing penguins. The art teacher made me a penguin. We measured ourselves with the penguins. We used non-standard units of measurement, which is a kindergarten skill. So right there, I've crossed over into the realm of math to teach my Socratic. And it doesn't have, I think if you click to the next slide, you can see some of the other stuff. So like up here, my kids didn't know what camouflage is. So I tossed black bears, brown bears, and white bears on white paper, and we looked for them. And oddly enough, a handful of kids missed at least one white bear because they camouflaged in, and we got to understand what camouflage is. You can see them down here, they're waddling with eggs. They understand now that the male penguin takes care of that egg until the chick is born and holds it on their feet, and it's not easy.
And that included the PE teacher, if I'm not
Yes, that did. Mr. Studley was wonderful in donating the space and the equipment as well. Up here, one of the big things, my kids loved seeing penguins toboggan, and I actually do have a clip somewhere of that little one pushing off and tobogganing like a penguin. It gives them a viewpoint of a penguin. So now they're starting to understand how big a penguin is, how hard it is in a penguin's life. They understand that it's very cold there. Again, the other pre-activities, you can actually see them measuring and counting out cubes to figure out how high they are compared to that penguin. One of the things I didn't take pictures with, because I was actually doing the experiment, was I made a blubber glove out of Crisco. I shoved it in a bag, ziplocked it, shoved another bag in it so they can stick their hand in the plastic bag and not get Crisco all over it. And I took water and we froze like cold water. It sat outside all morning so it didn't freeze, but it was really cold. And then the kids put their hand in a plastic bag and the plastic bag with the Crisco. And they could see how the Crisco acted like blubber, kept that one hand warm and the other hand got cold. And then again, that taught them how blubber was. And that would be a pre-Socratic activity to get them to better understand the life of a penguin or the life of a polar bear. Now, if you look at the Pledge of Allegiance, what are some of the things that you could do with the Pledge of Allegiance, or might have to do with the Pledge of Allegiance for pre-activities so that your kids would have that background knowledge before they entered into the discussion? So talking to what would you have to do? I'll give you a hint. Think about the time frame of when it was written.
If you need a guide, you may use the seminar plan to talk or guide your discussion.
The relevance of the stars on the flag, the relevance of the stripes on the flag. Yeah.
Bring in flags. count the stripes and figure out why they did that one stripe. Because the map.
That's the part that knowledge helps.
Call of Duty. And a lot of root words, and then flip it back to words their way, and then also context clues, the vocabulary, incorporate breaking it down from skills that they develop. Yeah. Okay, so I'm just coming on the end of it. What about the context of when it was written about it?
Well, with this
There's no really wrong.
This great video that was history of like the ocean, like cane stands on the beach. I don't know if it, I think you might know some of them, but do you know how many stripes?
Those are all perfect things, but also, this was written for the war of 1812. Do they know why we fought the war of 1812?
Do I know?
Yeah, because England was trying to take us back. But that's not there yet. But yeah, no, and video clips are perfect. That's one of the things I do with my kids. Before I even started this, I threw out a couple of YouTube videos, one on penguins, one on polar bears, because those are the big ones at each end, and so that they can see what life was like in those polar regions for the time. So a video clip is very much appropriate as a pre-seminar activity.
Oh yeah, there you go.
You see smiles, I like that.
And see, you know,
Mono is works their way prefix of slavery and past history in America that about liberty and justice for all.
Yeah.
Right. Think about it. And in current day, to present. And they would definitely be
All right, let's start writing it back, because I heard a lot of really good, great seminar activities. Alright, so I'm going to start with the last part. I like moving things around. I had a teacher who believed in alphabet discrimination, so you start at the beginning sometimes and at the end you never knew. So I'm going to reverse it. I'm going to start with this. My favorite poem is there. What would be one, at least give me one good activity that you would like to do, you could do as a pre-seminar activity for the pledge?
Okay, you said you could compare and contrast our freedoms that we have here under the Bill of Rights compared to other countries who don't have, or they don't have those
That's a
freedoms.
great one. That's great.
And another thing that we said since I came to teach kindergartners, and we've been doing this unit, a lot of things, a lot of our kids are visual. A lot of the kids, who have special needs. So we start off like, what do they think? Show them some videos of what a citizen is. What does it think? Because comparing citizenship to those who are or who's not, and what does it mean to them? Because we actually show them like force pictures of the flag, being brave and that sort of things.
That's social studies. That's
Yeah.
great.
Yes.
How about this middle table over here?
We were just going to talk about the flags, the different flags of the world, and comparing our flag to other flags, and why does our flag look the way it is? Why do we have the stars and stripes? What do they represent?
So that's symbolism.
And Njea mentioned the flags of our students. Yeah, the different flags of the world.
Very much so.
Their heritage.
And it does, and that brings the relevance in. Why is it relevant? How about the back table?
We can talk. We talked about vocabulary. And what could we pull out that they already did know? And the word indivisible, the math word divide, and in some grades we're doing prefixes and suffixes. The allegiance, do they probably don't know what that word means. They know what an ally is, and we were talking about a lot of our kids, boys in particular, are playing these video games, and I keep finding words that I didn't think they knew that there's some context in Minecraft. So I wouldn't be surprised if kids are playing Call of Duty do know what an ally is, and then build off of that. Yeah.
And again, that's, all about making it relative votes for the kids. My other back table?
The middle school back then.
We talked about also the flags and biculturalism, but also thinking about the Statue of Liberty and bringing that into the discussion to talk about, everyone's journey to the country and how they pledge their allegiance to their homeland, and now that you're here pledging their allegiance. So just probing that discussion further was
I
part
love
of our
that.
activity.
And the reason why I love that so much, that was made in France by a Frenchman. What drove him to give us such a gift? Because we spread around the world that culture of freedom.
And the last front group?
We're also thinking about the vocabulary and then thinking about how the students rewrite the Pledge of Allegiance in language that they understand. So the same meaning, the same message, but in their language.
So take some synonyms.
Yeah.
Change the language. Have them come up with some of the synonyms. That's a good idea. Promise.
I'm thinking that what you guys are talking about would be more post-seminar.
And that's exactly what I was thinking.
After you have done the Socratic seminar, you guys have really delved into the Pledge of Allegiance. Now they can take it on as their own and write their own Pledge of Allegiance from the perspective, a new perspective that they didn't have before the Socratic. So that might be a good post-seminar activity.
Hold on.
I was thinking the kids can make a flag to represent themselves or their family and choose symbols and colors. That's a good one.
I like what you said. We did that when we did Prindle. We discussed symbols, and they made their own shield. And they couldn't put their name on the shield. All their friends had to figure out whose shield it was based on those symbols that they had about themselves. That's an excellent.
Okay, so now it's time to really think about, you've done your pre-activity, and as you're going through and doing your pre-activities, you're starting to think about what you want to ask your children, your students during the seminar. And so it breaks down, seminar breaks down into 3 sessions. Your opening question, your core question, and your closing questions. The first question that you start with is generally your opening question. It is the most open-ended question. It is meant to get the kids thinking about the topic that you're doing. If you look at the kindergarten lesson plan that I gave, my opening questions to my kids were, we've been studying about the Arctic and the Antarctic. Why do you think the polar regions are important to us? Okay? That's, that gives them an opportunity to think about the polar regions. Why are they important? And come up with some big ideas. Another one that you could do is, again, I've been reading Isis Night. We've been reading Isis Nights for a while. What would be a better topic? What would be a better title to Isis Nights, and why? Again, that gets them thinking about. It gets them truly thinking about the question at hand. Questions should be embedded with the text. So again, it goes back to that text. We're talking about the polar regions. Why are they important? We're talking about the title of the book. How do we change it to make it better? It is the most open-ended. There is no right or wrong answer in it. In Socratic, that's the beauty of it. And I actually have a clip, and one of my kids gets completely way off topic, and you just got to go, okay, and move on to the next question or the next child, because you don't want to discourage them from speaking. You don't want to discourage them from thinking and putting their ideas out there, and that's part of that. There's no retribution or retaliation or feeling bad about what is being said there. So that's the key there. It should examine the ideas, the concepts, the values, not facts, and it should focus the students' attention to the text or their relationship to the text. So what Octavia just passed out right now is like a guide sheet of how to create an open-ended question for your opening question. So what you're going to do is, as a group, you're going to look, and what we're going to do is, in order to have an interesting seminar discussion, we're going to share out all of our openings, we're going to share out all of our core, we're going to share out our closing, and then when we have you guys work in your groups, you can select which opening, which cores, which closing you want to do. So at your table, you need to talk with your group and figure out how do you want to open the seminar? What would be a good question to ask the students or to ask the group? And we'll give you a couple of minutes and then we'll share out.
If you need, we said today as Steve Barkley was speaking, it's as if he was set up to introduce our topic for today, our connection for today. So if you wish to look at Steve Barkley's as well, utilize that as well. You're more than welcome to do so. It will make you quite happy.
Yeah.
What's our opening question?
Well, for regular, core question. Yeah, it's
You stress me out.
Oh, wow. Show you how
Goodness.
They would
Work. Okay, sorry. I just had to get that out of the way. Yeah. So we could pick one of these or come up with our own.
How is it going?
Yeah, we're kind of debating on how to begin.
Here's your poster.
Yeah.
I'll move it out of your way. I'll move it over here. How's that?
Oh, that's nice. Thank you.
Perfect alignment to Miss Stewart right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Here you go,
so you're the designated. The position you're in determines. That's how it happens in my class. No, I'm not.
I am, but I'm
something as simple as why is that?
Oh, that drives me crazy. If I had been over there, I would have put that over.
right. Well, it's on purpose.
title for your why did we say that?
Oh, I learned it in my class. That's why I can't use this mission. It's still for me.
That was good.
So let's make it.
Thank you. Much better.
Yeah, I said value is why do we say that? So what is the value? Like value. Or you can even make a statement. We say the pledge of allegiance every day because why do you feel we do that? Or why is it important to you?
Somebody decides. They don't know if it's important enough to say. Why does somebody decide?
Your closing question is the one that makes the personal connection with you, per se. But the core question, you'll have kids that will also give you their perspective. What is the difference between the big idea and
I'm sorry.
Why do we follow this ritual?
Well, then you got to make sure they know what a ritual is.
Yeah, that's the problem with that.
Why do we do this every day? Because ritual could take on a different meaning.
Or why do you go why do you put your hand on your heart when you say?
And maybe
Or is that
some of the kids would bring
Now,
that up.
you can with that. Why do you think that people place their hand on their heart when they say the Pledge of Allegiance? That could be a core question.
Right.
Or it could be even something as simple as there are, and this isn't simple, there are some countries where they don't have a pledge. Why do you think we have a pledge in other countries? There are
Something that
Why? Question mark.
Or do you want to put the word value in there? Why is this part of
We want to keep it simple. So
just why? Why?
Yeah. Who, what, when, where, why.
Yeah, you're gonna need the why there.
Yeah.
We didn't know if why was sufficiently
It has to be open-ended. You can leave it at why. There's allows there not to have a right or wrong answer to that question. Okay, about 1 more minute.
It's the most open-ended question. And you want to end. I'll get in trouble if I don't. Janine yelled at me when I didn't.
I have to be like, that motto, your right hand is on your heart.
You know what's so cool? I was meeting with the school and his dad in my office in the morning. And I forgot to actually get the flag. At the time of the flag, what is between some books. And he looked at his dad when he came in here, stood up, and recited how he stood with his hands behind his back in position, dressed very the entire time. They need that. And you should have seen the behind the scenes.
But behind that wall, I had had enough of them at that point. I was in the music room.
Alright, let's bring this back together. Let's look at some of the questions that we have around the room. And the reason why we have them up around the room is because when we're done giving you all the information, we're going to let you have your own Socratic discussion about the pledge. One of you in your group is going to be that leader. We'll walk around the way we have been, but one of you is going to be the leader, so one of you can pull any one of the questions, or your opening. You can pull from the core questions, and you can pull from the closing. So we'll just go around and kind of... Uh-oh. I see some closing questions we haven't even gotten there yet.
It's okay. It's okay. Once your mind starts running, it can't stop.
It can't, and that's part of what we're doing. So I'm going to start in the back because I really kind of like their question. Naomi, what was your group's question that you came up with?
Okay, so we were thinking about if you're in those lower elementary grades, what words are they bringing with them into the classroom? They all say, I promise, I promise, I promise to their parents when they're in preschool, first grade. They have some sort of a concept of what a promise is. So we wanted to take what the pledge actually was, and it is a promise that you're going to have allegiance to your country, right? And so that's how we had some discussion around the table, how can we frame it, because that was a big part. We started out, what is a promise, and we just, through dialogue, this is, or why do we keep promises, and we had a lot of different discussion, and this is what we came up with as our ending, opening.
I love them. I love them all.
How about our middle table?
So the first question has to do with, well, what other types of pledges do we have in our lives. Well, as we grow up, if we're part of Girl Scout or Boy Scout Club, we do pledges. If you're affiliated with a fraternity or a sorority, we have pledges. So what are those, looking at comparing, contrasting those pledges, and what does it mean actually?
Front table over here, you've got a couple of things going on there.
Your opening question?
Why do we say the pledge every morning? And then with the older kids, we thought we could research when was it created and why. And is it important that people express hatred?
And what I had told the middle group, that middle question, when was it created and why, that's more of a core question, what you ask in the middle of your discussion. My other Columbus group, what question did you guys come up with?
We came up with, what is the purpose of saying the Pledge of Allegiance?
And my last group, yes.
We were similar to the other Columbus group. We say the Pledge of Allegiance every day at school. Why? And we were like upper elementary kind of mindset.
Well, and you'll excuse if the volume comes out too loud because I had the iPad on my lap. This was from the other day. I kind of tweaked my question a little bit, so it's a little bit different than the one on the page because it just happens to happen. And you'll notice they're normal, everyday kids, and just I just have to laugh because they're my little loves, you know. What happened? We had the volume up on the yeah. So. It was working before. Is your sound all the way up? Okay. Check the plugs. Right, of course you don't have. There we go. Because my voice comes out.
All right. In what ways are the Arctic, the North Pole, and the Antarctic, the South Pole, alike? In what ways they are different?
They have igloos.
What are the igloos?
And we wanted to say they're at the North Pole because they know that you can't have igloos at the South Pole because you really don't have anybody living there. But that was the start of my opening Socratic. You see, we get off a little bit, but we come back on, and they all bounced around and talked and added their piece of information in there. And as you can see, kindergarten Socratic, when you see the older kids and the core questions, you're like, yeah, night and day. What I expect from my little kids is very different from what the older kids are. But one of the big improvements from the first to the second is the first part of the year you teach your kids, raise your hand to get permission to speak, raise your hand to speak, I have to untrain them to do this. So the first time we had a lot of kids raising their hands, you saw there was one child that did, but the rest of them hadn't been raising their hands. You heard the and you heard the talking going back and forth. And that was a big accomplishment for me with the little kids, was to get them to have that conversation without talking over one another. The next type of question that we do is the core. It's the least open-ended. It is basically from the text. It is those questions like, when was the Pledge of Allegiance created and why? There's an exact date, there's an exact moment, there's an exact reason. And as you go through, we'd like you to go through and create a core question. Usually you'll do about 3 core questions, and 3 or 4 core questions, and with each core question there might be a follow-up. So for one of my core questions that I wrote was, ice is nice, and the Cat in the Hat states, and I took a quote about that. Why do some people call it the Arctic the land of the midnight sun? Do you think the Cat in the Hat agrees with it? Why or why not? What would be a better name? So all of those come from that. I took it from the text. I had a follow-up question, and a third question to go with it, so that they were thinking about the text itself as we were discussing. Now that didn't quite come out so cute or nice when we were discussing. One of my kids got one of the numbers caught in her hair, and there was a lot of giggling and other fun stuff that happened, but that's kindergarten.
For the older students, some of the core questions, such as in Franco, who had an epiphany in the story and what was the lesson that was learned? Another core question would be, explain the use of the word boycott and how it was used in the story. Because he wanted to boycott the cafeteria, but he felt bad about so much going on in his life, he became down and he didn't do it because he was a bold child. But his teacher brought him out and made him a wonderful child. And that word led to a history lesson. The boycott, the bus boycott.
Okay, and what I'm also going to do, before we have you write the core questions, I'm going to tell you about the closing question, and we'll have you write the core and the ending, and then we'll let you go into So the ending question, that's your kind of wrap-up question. It's a question of how the ideas and the text relate to the student's understanding, and how is it really relevant, and how does the kids' understanding change throughout the entire seminar. So for my closing question was, what effects does global warming have on the polar regions? What effects does the warming of the polar regions have on us? What do you think we can do to slow the polar warming and save the animals in the polar region? So when we talked, we could ride bicycles, because they started understanding that cars emit gases that help create holes in the ozone layer, and we talked about all of that stuff. So your ending question, you're now talking more about those big, deep ideas and how it relates to the kids and how it relates to their life as well. Yep. So what we're going to have you do is we're going to take like a minute or two, have you create a core question and a closing question.
Heck yeah.
Why did we put the right hand over our heart?
Yes. Yes. Why did we put our right hand over our heart? Why was the pledge created? Because these are the least open-ended. What is this? What do the stars represent? What do the stripes represent? That's too many.
When we combine the stars and stripes in one question.
Like
one core question.
Well, you should really have 3 in the interest of time.
Oh, you have 5? Great. You want to write them all up here? You absolutely can do that. Yeah, absolutely.
The right hand could that be a closing question? Why do we put a right hand?
It could be. It very well could be. But or more of a wrap-up to the open. Okay. So I was thinking for closing now what will the pledge? What will you think of when you say the Pledge of Allegiance? Right.
How has it now changed your mind?
Right. Something along those lines.
How has your
democracy and freedom?
So this is kind of a bridge to that.
Okay. So people
yeah. And then fill in. I do that all the time. Oh, I just thought it was weird.
No.
Well, you want to connect to that question.
I mean,
So now when you say the Pledge of Allegiance every day, what will what is your connection? What will it remind you of? Your new understanding.
So this is the sort of our questions is what people are actually finding. For you, while you're doing whatever.
So we have to have a program next week.
Or the significant. Well, we gotta be important. We gotta be careful though.
So now we'll get
Some kids will be like significant. So now you
Okay, so
what is your understanding of the oath? Oh, we gotta be careful with words. We got we can put oath in the middle of core. Okay. But was there any understanding? Wait a minute, what does it mean to you? You can do a self-connection. What does it mean to you? Text itself, man. Yeah. I like that. What else would you what do you mean? Because the polar understanding.
And that's what I
Back at
It's midnight, 12 days
action.
of the year. 3 or 4 months in sun, it doesn't get dark. And some people
Trying to find a way to fit.
To evaluate what you mean. Yeah, that you do that Oh, now we're at everyday life.
You have your core and
you be thinking about it.
Okay, so we're going to work that together in like 1 minute, guys.
1 more minute.
New meaning. What new meaning? Does it have? What do you mean? Have you discovered what it means?
But we want what you have no matter what.
That's long. Okay. Why would we put our right hand over our heart? So why do you put your right hand over your heart when you recite the pledge? Why was the pledge created? What do the stars and stripes represent? Just put that into one question. And then you got 3.
Like me, I brought your classroom. Alright, let's bring it back. Always have a party.
That's good.
They're doing, the students are doing.
So what we're going to do in this we're going to share our one of your core questions. Some of you have more than one. We're just going to share one of them and then share our closing question. Okay? So if we could have you guys share one of your core and your closing.
Well, we were told that our when was it created and why was a good core question. So, well, we left it be. And our closing, if you were to rewrite the plan for today, would you change it and why?
You guys, would you like to share your core question and your closing question?
Yeah, why do you agree or disagree with this pledge is the core? We're going to amend that one. That's just what we're going to
Okay. Okay. And your closing question is?
Well, we wanted to connect it back to today, so how does it relate to justice? We all have justice.
Okay. Do we all have justice? Would you guys like to share your core, one of your core?
Why do you put your right hand over your heart?
Why do you do that?
Right?
And your closing.
So now when we say the Pledge of Allegiance every day, what new meaning have you discovered?
Right.
You got core. Okay, so we said as a core question, why might some people choose not to say the pledge? For different things that the pledge states, like is our nation really one nation, and do all people have liberty and justice? And then as a closing question, it could be, well, what changes need to be made so that all people really do have liberty and justice?
And in the back here, give you guys some time to chat. Your core and your closing.
What does it mean when we say one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all? And why is the pledge important to America today?
I like that one with indivisible. I asked my students, what does indivisible mean? And then what does it mean for our nation to be indivisible? So that's, that vocabulary. Here's This is during their core questions.
Yes, for Christmas Carol.
Rich people do have them, but sometimes it's just for them. And that's just really not about professionals. It's almost like a stereotype how the rich only talk with the rich, and the poor only hang out with the poor. But the poor are more happier than the rich.
Can you have me think of text written into mine? Sure, I will. What do you think the spirits were trying to do? Make up for what they didn't do? Still finished up, didn't hear you. All trying to say the thing with us already.
So you can see, the big kids got some really deep ideas and deep thoughts about their text.
So were there different groups in there?
There were two different groups. And we're gonna talk about that.
Okay.
I think that works better for the older kids to have two different groups. And I would have done two different groups, except the day I was doing that, my para was testing upstairs with the kids, so she wasn't in the room. Otherwise, she would have taken one group and I would have taken it.
But you can have an inner circle and an outer circle. The outer circle will just watch and observe, and it will be their turn later if you can't have two groups. I was just blessed to have Linda volunteer to do a group with us.
So in the interest of time, I'm going to kind of skim through the last section of this, because the really important piece is for you to practice doing it yourself. Right? You've done all this work with getting opening questions, core questions, and closing questions. Now engaging in a seminar for yourselves is really what's going to help you see how you can implement it into your classroom and kind of give you a feel of it. One thing that I don't like about PDs, and I'm grateful to have PDs that I've gone to currently that has allowed me to engage in what I'm doing, but I hate going to something where they just tell you do it and it's like, okay, now what does this look like? So we want to give you the look like piece. What does it look like? So for student responsibility, on your PowerPoint, I'm not going to read through all of the things that the students are responsible to do. I'm just going to highlight a couple of things. Really, it's just about them engaging in authentic conversations, right? In our classrooms, we often say, raise your hand, I'm going to call on you. That's not the idea of Socratic Seminar. It's for them to have a discussion with their classmates based around the text that they have studied, that they have read closely, that they have annotated, that they have asked questions about. So really, students' responsibility is to take ownership of it and now engage into this deeper conversation with classmates to get their understanding of it, to contribute to their understanding of a text as well. The teacher's responsibility. I brought a sample of my book. You're scribing the conversation with the students, and in your packet, it gives you ways that you can do that. I brought I just sometimes just get a piece of paper and just as they're engaging in conversation, here is a graph paper, right? Just what their discussion was like, what was the opening question, who asked what question. Some students, said, what do you think about, and then they would start talking. So just mapping out the discussion for you so that you can refer back to it. So that's one of the teacher's responsibilities.
Do you give them participation grades or something for?
I do. But this is where we get a little touchy because some of your students that it's really hard for them to just ask that one question, right? Because I have a student, Christy. She does not like to talk at all. If anyone were to tell me Christy was outside yelling, you're not telling me the truth. Christy, you know your students. So what we would do, when we talked about this before, you would give that student a stick, one of those equity sticks, and say, your responsibility today is to ask one question, right? Your responsibility today is to respond to one of your other classmates. That would be an A for that student, right? Because it took that courage for them to just do that one thing, right? Whereas you have your talkers, the ones that want to dominate the whole conversation. So you give them one stick and say, your responsibility today is to ask one question. Don't dominate the whole conversation, right? So equity, that's where your judgment as a teacher comes in, and that's part of that teacher responsibility. How can I make this as authentic as possible? But how can I also incorporate students that don't really like to talk, and then silence some of the ones that want to talk all day and all the time. Classroom setup, you saw with Mrs. Spears, she had 2 small circles. That's if you have another teacher in your classroom. Ms. Carmen was willing to do that. Some of us do not have that luxury of having another teacher. Some of us do not have that luxury of having a schedule that would allow another teacher to come in. So that's when, if you look at classroom setup, you can do an inner and outer circle. When Njea first came to our building last year and did a presentation, or the year before, 2 years ago, and talked about Socratic seminars, I just ran with it and did it. And I used the inner outer circle because I didn't know what else to do. It was just me, and how was I going to do that? So the outer circle students would be responsible for I paired them up with one another. So you two will be paired together, you two are paired together, you two are paired together. The people in the middle are doing the seminar. The people on the outside are looking at their partner's response, looking at how their partner is participating, and I had a kind of like a rubric checklist for the people on the outside to check how many times their partner participated, to check how many questions they asked, to check if they used accountable talk, meaning if they say, I agree with you, or if I disagree with you. So their responsibility was just to focus in on their partner. And then after that inner circle seminar, they debriefed with their partner and said, this is what you did, this is what you didn't do. Some of the kids were like, oh, I didn't? I thought I did. No, you didn't. My responsibility is to watch you. And then they switched off. So that can be helpful for people that don't have someone else in your classroom. And then you have one large circle. I guess this comes down to, like you were saying, kindergarten.
I had only 17 kids in my class, and the day I actually did it was one of the first days of testing. So my para was upstairs proctoring for testing on, I think I did it on Tuesday when I did the videotape. So I put them in a circle. They can't be in an inner and an outer circle. They don't have the focus to be able to watch what the inner circle is doing. It does work better because the first seminar I did, I also had Linda in the classroom with me, and she took half the class, and I took half the class, and we had 2 seminars going on at the same time. But it worked well because, you know what, we had the ground rules. The kids knew that this was a discussion, and leading up to that discussion, we practiced. I don't just throw these questions out there cold to my little people. I question them all the time. I'll throw this question out in a discussion after reading the book 1 or 2 times. And they'll keep hearing the question so that when we get into that discussion, they have the ideas of how they want to answer in their head, and it's not coming from somewhere else.
That's more for lower grades.
Definitely for lower level grades, yeah.
And the key thing is if you practice these things with your students, you might get to a point with kindergarten where you can do an inner and outer circle. You know, if you focus on 3 things, right? These are the 3 things we've practiced. We've practiced being a listening ear, you know, a listening Lawrence, you know, were they sitting straight up, you know, simple things that kindergarten can do. It's possible that they could be configured into an inner and outer circle, you know, as you practice. Okay, so, time to play. Now it's you guys' turn to actually engage in a seminar with the people at your table. Actually, do we have enough time to mix up the tables? We have.
You've got about 8. You've got about 8 minutes.
Okay, we don't have enough time. Okay, so what you can do is select one person from your table. That would be the facilitator, the teacher role. They're the ones that are going to open up with an opening question. Let's just do the beginning part with the opening question, okay? The leader and the facilitator is going to throw out the opening question to the people at the table. The responsibility of the people at the table, you are the students, is going to be sort of like a round robin for the opening question, where you give each person the opportunity to answer the opening question before you move into a core question. Okay? So first, figure out who would you like to be the facilitator, the leader, the teacher role. That person needs to think of what their opening question could be. Does not have to be the one you wrote. If you can choose from anyone else's, right? I tell my students to steal. This is the only place where you can steal is in school. Steal ideas from one another, right? Steal ideas. So if you like someone else's, use that as an opening question. Okay? Kayana. Yeah. Kayana ran with it. Yeah. So choose that question as your opening question, and then do kind of like a round robin. Ask each person is responsible for answering that opening question. Okay. Choose who your leader facilitator is.
And we say our time is running out, coming down. As I say to my students, look at the clock, look at the clock. It keeps you on task.
Our clocks are crazy. Okay, we're going.
Who's our facilitators? Who are our leaders?
You give them a stick, and they have to answer once. If you know your students, do you your class that you set goals for them every day, like you're going to participate at least once? It would be the same in this sort of scenario. Do you give an active listening grade? Because if they don't, okay. I like what we got going on here. So when we say the Pledge of Allegiance every day, we say the Pledge of Allegiance every day at school. Why?
Funds from the government.
So mean.
Because
wow, very positive. Nice. So when we
go back and then poke like
no, it's very
You do your round robin.
Yes.
Now you can go to your core questions, and they must refer when they answer to the text.
Okay. All right. So
As their
documentation, back up their opinion.
Absolutely.
Now let's suggest so.
I want to go hang out with her.
So are we doing the work?
Are you answering?
My smart aleck response was
Move to your core question. Your core question does not have to be round robin. Anyone can begin the conversation.
because it's a pledge and we this is part of our
Do I have everybody? So did you make a text? I you don't know what your name is. When I do this, was to talk to each other and to interact with each other and not have them looking at me, and to get the dialogue going amongst themselves. So I think that's something you have to like do before you do something that we say and model. So I would have like, what'd you say? Oh yeah, hearing that. And I would have like moved behind her if she was talking to me, so I would have like moved behind her and so that she would have had to have adjusted her eye contact
I can tell you on your core.
But so you answer the question. If you don't want to, she's coming back to it. Even though I'm facilitating,
she just me jumping in, not going.
Yes. Well, when you pose the opinion, because it says, and you said because it says in the text, or it says in the pledge, whatever the question is that you're asking. That wouldn't be. Let's see. Well, exactly.
Right.
If you can hear me, clap. If you can hear me, clap. If you can hear me, clap one. If you can hear me, clap twice. If you can hear me, clap three times. Thank you. I don't like to raise my voice. Thank you guys. Okay, so you guys had an opportunity to have your own mini, messy Socratic seminar, right? We wish we had more time where we could really have an authentic one with you guys. I would love it if you guys would have been able to intermingle with one another in different groupings. After you do the Socratic seminar, you go into reflection. Well, as a teacher, what worked, what didn't work. Were there certain questions that you probably posed that students weren't prepared for? I know after my Socratic seminar, I realized that if I had students doing more note-taking during that whole time we were studying we read the book Change. So if they did more note-taking on it and some of the questions that I threw out to them, if I had more activities for them where it was on paper for them, they would have been more prepared for conversation. So you just have to do some reflecting from the teacher perspective. The students also do some reflection. Did they ask questions? Were they engaged? Did they ask another student a question? Did they draw people into the conversation? There's also a rubric outline for that as well in your packet. Afterwards, you also do a post-seminar activity. So kind of like what one of the students said, one of the teachers said here, for the pre-seminar activity was now to write the Pledge of Allegiance in their own words.
that can be something that you can do as a post-seminar activity after having the seminar. The post-seminar activity is that culminating activity that brings it all together for them. You should get a product out of the post-seminar activity.
For like the little people, it could be as simple as writing a sentence and illustrating something they learned throughout the seminar. And I left my books at home. So here is just me talking about a seminar from 2 years ago that I did, and the state videotaped it, and it goes into the seminar. You guys can stay and watch, and as you get yourselves situated to go back out and enjoy lunch. This is me talking about seminar. Thank you guys very much.
Means so much.
Lunch is in the ballroom. You go down the long hallway and take the left, and it's on your left.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Which brings us to, if you're never going to be comfortable enough to do anything, we're going to introduce ourselves, give you some information on the next slide. So you can go to the next slide.
Sorry.
And I'll explain my take on just do it. Kind of like the Nike symbol and their logo.
And before we get started with that, if you all see at the top of your screen, you'll see a whole bunch of little icons. Does anybody that does not see that? It's like a giraffe, a bear. So when you share when you give someone the URL without necessarily sharing it to them, giving them rights to edit or change things, you can actually just see who's viewing your document. So you all may not know who each other are, but as you can see, like there are multiple people in one document, which is really cool because we'll talk about later how you can collaborate.
Okay, so if you go to the second slide, it's welcome. Ms. Thomas and I are fortunate. We work at Grant School in Trenton, and we're fortunate that we were right next to each other. Our classrooms literally next to one another. As you can see, we're very different. She's much older than I am. So we really got to collaborate because she was my mentee. So we got it? Yeah. Baby. Thank you. And if you can see anything, I have here that I'm a 4th grade general education teacher. I've also taught 6th, 7th, and 8th ELA. And I need glasses now because I'm so young. And I'm not a digital native, so everything I've had to do, I just did it. Like you're never ready, you never know enough, you're never comfortable enough. And we were fortunate to get a lot of technology this last year. So I just kind of had to talk with my students. They're 4th graders, so they're still little, but they can be kind of fresh, and they love to point out everything I do wrong. You know, that age group. So I just told them, I said, look, we're going to try using these tools that we got. I'm learning too, and you're going to have to be patient with me. I'll be patient with you. And then I explained to them how when I grew up, I didn't have any of this. I mean, we had the phone with the cord still when I was a kid. And how I just keep trying and trying, and they have to keep trying and trying. So after the 10th time I tell you how to get on Wi-Fi and log yourself in, I'm telling you again. You could get a buddy to tell you. Kids can really bog you down with that kind of stuff with technology. So you just kind of have to set a tone. We're all learning. You're responsible to know what I teach you 10 times that's reasonable. And then beyond that, you go to your buddies, because I'm moving on. And they're amazing. I can't believe how well they took to all this. Like, much better than I thought they would. Do you want to jump in and introduce yourself, or you technology tie?
So I just said I graduated from Rowan University. I'm very proud of my school. I'm actually going back there now for grad school. I'm a 5th grade general education teacher. I'm also certified in special ed. But I guess I'd rather teach general ed. This is my 3rd year teaching. I taught 4th grade my first 2 years. And as Ms. Stewart mentioned, I was her mentee, and we've developed a great relationship over time. I'm much more savvy, I guess I could say, but we learn off of each other, and our ideas bounce back and forth off of each other, and we're great at collaborating.
Well, would you say you're digital native, or no? Not you're too old for that even.
Kinda.
And then we were talking the other day. You know, you have your children like go Google it, and they can't. do, just intuitively, that they can't seem to get. And she made a really good point. She's like, we got used to technology little pieces at a time, and these kids come into a world where there's just tons of it, and it's overwhelming. And I was like, wow, you were very insightful. I didn't think of it that way. Like, I got to try it out as it was growing, and they don't. And is that part of why they can't seem to find? Even like my own children at home sometimes. I'm like, what's wrong with you? Can't you Google the office of such and such and find out when they're open? And I don't know why sometimes they can't. But it might be that. It is overwhelming. We sometimes have to appreciate that about it. Oh, good. I guess that's about it. We were lucky being a mentor and mentee that we learned from each other a lot. And I think we're ready to go to the next slide. Okay. Did you make it live? So, this is one of the products that we have encountered, and it is polleverywhere.com. And Ms. Thomas is going, it'll only take you 30 seconds. Right, go back. It's only a 3-hour window. It's a free product up to 40 people. So that's a classroom easily. You can do less than that classrooms. So you can pull your kids about anything. So once this is live, which will let us know, you're going to click on that. Don't click on it yet. And you're going to be asked a question about your own tech savviness. Like, how do you feel you rank? There are several poll websites out there. You pay extra, you get some more bells and whistles. But this is great for your own presentations or in your classroom. How many people here don't have, probably most of you, one-to-one technology your students don't have in your classroom? The rest of you
Don't have it?
Don't. And I would say that was us last year.
So yeah, we were in those seats last year where we did not have the one-to-one technology. So an option for that is scheduling in your lesson planning, scheduling time in a computer lab if you have that. Some of your kids have computers at home, which is another issue that we run into. But now we're fortunate enough for our 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders to have one-to-one technology,
which they can't take home. So we still have that problem with you can't get home assignments or any of that. The other thing is, how many do you have in your classroom? Like before this, I thought I was lucky. I had 4 dinosaur desktops. And I consider myself very fortunate. They all work most of the time. So you could rotate kids through. The point is, don't let something be a hurdle. You're going to have hurdles. Like if you don't have one-on-one technology, you feel like you can't do some of the things that are going to show us. Wasn't my computer, now it sure is again.
With the poll,
can I click on it now? Okay, you can click on the poll now. Oh, we're up. Good.
So the poll is live. Once you go to that URL, there are a few ways you can do it. You can click directly on the link, and it'll take you to another window. You can click directly on the URL to vote. You can also text to that number, and you have to text the username, which is here. And you're gonna get a text back that basically tells you you've been accepted, and then you would poll. And the question, tech savviness, how do you rank? 1, I don't know much about technology. 2, I'm still learning about technology. 3, I have a pretty good handle on technology. And 4, I can teach someone else about technology.
So this is for us to get an idea of where you are, but also to show you can do anything with it. You can assess prior knowledge. You can just they love to be asked their opinion. You can ask their opinion about something. They're much more engaged when they think their opinion matters. Obviously, you wouldn't want your kids texting in class the answer, but if you're here, you don't have a device, and you want to, you can.
I click on polleverywhere.com. There's that one to respond, right?
Does your screen look like this?
No, it did. Now I went to
this one, yeah.
I click on poll.
And then here's when you click on all they're kind of big, underneath the link shows up. You click on the link underneath.
Oh, okay. And you click here?
Yes. Oh, it took me to this.
Oh, that's a different
I did click it. Drive question.
Well, let's answer that. Because we're going to teach you about Google Drive too. But we didn't know how much people, some people are using it already, some don't even know what it is.
We didn't create it.
Right. So I have one back here. How many people have one about Google Drive? Because that's the next one.
No. That's what, because I went to the school.
Were you on the third page?
So texting my response, full EV.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We'll have to get back there.
Okay, next.
You answered the question, right? And then you just go back. There's another one?
So the point was just made, this is an example of what can happen in the class.
Yes, so
Which goes back to, for some reason, we have two of them set up. Some are going this one. I don't know how one link could take you to oh. See, that's why it's free. They want us to buy it.
If we want to text you our response,
Up there it says you text the Mary Beth Stu 899. That's in your that's your
that's the text message.
Yeah.
So I gotta do the number first.
Right. So for those,
So what happened is we created two polls, and for whatever odd reason, the link that you guys have is taking you to the next poll that you'll see
but
later.
some of them aren't.
Now it is.
Some of them are fine. They're the right ones.
Oh, there it is. I see. Whoever
Oh, I
just
had to do something. What happened? I still don't see no party.
So somebody got in.
Miss Ella got in. The link.
Yeah, that's the other one.
You have to click on the link.
Oh, that was the other one. That's why.
Click on the link.
Do you have a technologist in?
I sent my text to Mary Beth.
No, you're saying the text to 1747.
Okay, and then in my text box, I put the Mary Beth.
Yeah.
Just text.
And then I get text.
You'll get a response back.
You'll get a response back.
You got a text message?
So the people who did respond to Google Drive, like we're getting that. Like the bars are there. So don't feel left out. Why did one go to this and all the other?
No, we didn't do this one. Which one?
All right.
We did the other one.
So we're going to move on from this. Yeah, we can do a handful.
Can you guys be elementary students for us and just show me about 1, 2, 3, 4 your response? One, I don't know much about technology. 2, I'm still learning. 3, I have a pretty good handle. 4, I can just
What do you want?
you can just show me with your finger. Elementary students for us.
Yeah, she's a
Okay. We got a
3.
3.5.
2.5.
All right. All right. So now if you move into slide 4. We'll talk about Google Drive.
All right, so this is a big question. What is Google Drive? It's pretty much a cloud that stores your information. You get rid of your documents within your desktop. You get rid of your flash drives. And it stores your slides, your docs, anything that you create, you can store it. You can also share files, which is a biggie. You don't have to go back and forth with emailing. Again, taking those flash drives and, okay, I have it on my flash drive and I plug it into your computer and you put it on your computer. And then collaborating. And we'll get into lot more with that later. But it's huge for collaborating because you can literally work on one document, 2 different areas. You can chat back and forth. You don't have to email and say, hey, I don't have to say, hey, Ms. Stewart, can you check your email, open this up. You don't have to worry about resaving things. Like, Google Drive is it's a really good piece of technology that just gets rid of that flash drive, which I hate it now. Within Google Drive, it includes documents, which is similar to Microsoft Word, presentation, which is equivalent to or similar to PowerPoint. You have spreadsheet, which is equivalent to Excel, forms, and drawing. And currently, when you sign up for a Gmail and you get a Google Drive, it stores up to 15 gigabytes for free. That's current. We don't know if it's going to decrease or increase over time, but that's what it is currently. And one of the biggest things is it automatically saves. So as soon as you lift your finger up off the key, the last word you type, the last piece of punctuation, you put it save.
Which is huge if you think of your students. How many kids can't seem to save things properly, or they claim they lost, or they really do lose it? You don't have any of that when you use this product. To me, that was really big. And the other piece is, has anyone ever here used the drives with the sticks where you're moving it around? Like in my classroom, I had these 4 desktops and one printer that's only hooked into one desktop. Couldn't seem to get anyone to change that up for me, but anyway. I stopped letting the kids type. Like I had it with the flash drive, and now I'm spending my time moving it and emailing it to myself so I can pick it up and print it over here. Like I just didn't do it anymore last year. I was like, you can all write everything down on that lined paper. Like, it was just too much. So when this came out, I was like, wow, we can go back to typing. And with Parks, they have to type. So this was huge for that too.
There's also a link that we embedded within this presentation. And again, going back to paperless, this presentation is for you to take home. You can go back and review it. You can look at the short tour now or later. It's up to you. But that just tells you how much we've gone paperless at this point.
So this will take you to, I think it's a YouTube video. And there's a lot of people out there doing things with education and putting it on YouTube. Like, if there's something you can't figure out how to do, Google it, and you'll probably find something. And they're pretty short. I think this one is 5 minutes, and we have another one in here that's 8. And there's others. They just happen to be the ones we looked at and embedded in here.
Okay.
So we did this one.
This is our second poll. These were your responses from the poll that we were supposed to do later, but we did now. This kind of gives you all where we are with Google Drive and how are you using it. And as you can see, most people have Google Drive, but they don't utilize it very often. And what I found was, when I first found out what Google Drive was, again, I loved it just because I didn't have to carry my flash drive around, but I didn't realize how many things I could do with it. And when I figured that out, that's when I started using it. I go to it for everything. I'm always asking them, like, you don't know about Google Drive, you have to get one, it's so amazing. So that is where our largest population is. We have it, but we don't know how to use it.
Last year, I think you were leading the charge on that. We had a large 4th grade. We had 7 classes. So trying to collaborate, they want us doing, common assessments and all. This is what we did, because emailing everybody was crazy. How many times do you send an email, you get your attachment, that kind of thing? Whatever we had it all organized by subject and units, and whatever work you did, you just saved in there. If somebody wanted to go use it, they could. And if they didn't have to. And they weren't getting emails. And it was completely changing the game for us. It was great.
And so, it's still up there.
And it's still there. We add to it.
Yeah, and as a now 5th grade teacher, Ms. Thomas and I are both 5th grade, I've referred to that 4th grade drive from last year so many times.
So that was how we started. Now this year we gave our students all have Google Drive, which has been amazing.
And for those districts that are equipped with their students having their own emails or having their Google Drive, especially for the older children, it cuts down on the copying or stealing or deleting, because that was another issue we ran into. Ms. Stewart has 4 laptops. I had 2. Although the kids can use them and they can save their work on a document, you also have those kids that'll go in and take work or delete it, and it's gone after that. You can't get it back. So you do have the opportunity for each student to have their own Google Drive, so that way they only can touch their work and you can only look at their work versus them being able to look at other students' work and manipulate it.
For the people who don't have a Google Drive set up, do you want to show how to do that now? That's easier. Okay, so let's do that.
So for those of you who don't have a Google Drive, do you have a Gmail account that you know of?
Yes.
So you have a Gmail account, you have a Google Drive that you don't know about. So if you go to google.com, which is where we are now, and you're logged into your Google account, and you click this little person, that shows that I'm logged in. So I'll give you a few minutes. If you have not logged into your Google account, you can, and then we're going to go from here.
So just for those of you who don't need to do this, I'm signing Thomas out and signing myself in because I'm going to show you some of my students' work.
Does anybody need assistance? I was bringing this to you earlier because I know you didn't have one, so you can follow along with us. That's okay. Do you have a Google account? Mm-hmm. Okay, let me log out.
That's work. All right,
See, you didn't got it right there. You guys are good? Does anybody need help logging in?
So what happens with a professional
You could open it up now just so we can show you how to work with the drive.
So we should go into this now?
Yeah. You don't have to do all the time.
So you'll be closing it? It's not going to work? Okay, I'll close it.
Yeah.
Close.
Are we good? Okay. So I'm on slide 6. If you're in your presentation, that's where we are. Okay. You know what? That's yours logged in.
Okay. For those of you who are logged in, and I mentioned some of you have a Google account, but you didn't know you had a Gmail. If you go to this little block here, this shows you where all your apps are. So as you can see, here's your mail, your calendar, your docs, all that good stuff. And here's your drive.
Okay.
I have a school drive that we got this year. I also have one in my own personal email, which has mostly school stuff. But I started uploading all my photos from there, so I'm afraid I'm going to lose them. So this is, my students are working on this. This is sitting mine right now.
So here's your drive, and if you have never used it, obviously it's going to be blank because you don't have anything in it, but as you can see, this is all the documents that would, this is Ms. Stewart's classroom drive, so this is most of her students' work, some documents that she has created, but this is for those of you that are still a little confused, if you go to my computer and you have My Documents on your desktop, this is it. You no longer have My Documents stored on your desktop. You can access this from any computer that has internet access. You can download the app I know Apple has an app, not sure for any other carriers. I know Apple has an app and you can access it, and you can also edit it from your phone if you download the apps.
Does everyone know what a cloud is, like cloud storage? Some people don't. So if you don't, it's not your hard drive, it's not your removable stick drive. Think of a cloud. It's out there on somebody's server, this piece Google's, and that's why you can access it from anywhere. Any computer anywhere in the world that you can get on the internet and get to Google, you can access all of your stuff.
And within your drive, you can create, different folders just like you would in My Documents. You can change the way it's formatted so it looks comfortable for you. This is really about you and what's comfortable for you and how you want things set up. I'm going to stick on a lot of things so I have things the way I like it, but this is for you. So again, for those of you who did not know that you had a drive, you do as long as you have a Google account.
So now we're going to talk about Google Docs, which is a lot of what you just saw there. Ms. Thomas already told you it's very similar to Microsoft Word. It saves automatically, which is huge, especially with students. And it shows you all revisions and edits. I'm going to show you how cool that was with my own kids in a minute. It's great for conferencing, and it can be shared. So kids can share with each other and peer edit. They share with you, and you can grade and give it back to them. So I will show you. Okay, so this is another product we'll get into, which is Google Classroom. I have all of my students' Google Docs organized in here, and I'll show you. So this is, what's the date on here? January 23rd. This is something we did. You can grade in here. You can see that I didn't grade it because we graded it on a paper rubric, so I wasn't going to bother using that. I will show you how I did grade in here recently. So the point of this writing assignment was to read about a figure for Black History Month. They did a bulletin board. So they had to read books. They could also go to the internet if they wanted to know more about the person. And they had to write about character traits because that's one of our standards for ELF. So they had to find character traits of this person and write about it. So this is one of the ones we jotted. What I'm going to show you is I have revision history over here. If you see, I clicked on edit, loading. And this is showing me the student's work, every little thing he did. So you go back to January 20th. And I can look and see what he was thinking, what he changed. And then the other problem I was thinking about was, gee, I have to show, go to this one. Okay. So the pink shows what he did that day. So I've clicked on the bottom here, January 21st. I was really working with the students in their books at this point, by books I mean Chromebooks, on their little laptops. And I wasn't documenting all of my conferencing because I was busy working with kids, and I can work with more kids if I'm not busy writing down every little thing I did with them. And then I was like, oh great, I made this document. I realized as I went through the revision, the last day of revision showed all the conferencing I had done with him because I started typing because it was quicker. So here's how he started out, and the next day you can see how it even has the time. This all saves automatically. This is nothing that he had to do. He goes in the next day, first thing he does is he changed. You can see the strikeout there, one little thing. The next day he goes in, or later that day, he took the whole thing out. He didn't like it. And then he goes in, and you can see he retypes it. Then this next, on the 26th, he adds all of this. Then we go on the 28th. You can see the time. So he went in right before lunch. Just kind of made me laugh. We had lunch at like 12:05 for lining up. I don't know what he was doing. But you can see he went back and reread and edited. Like, that made me so happy. Then he decided to reword this, and he added another paragraph. and then this is near the end of the day. He went back in, and all I did was put his name and the title of the book. He indented good. Okay, now this was where I was saying this. I sat every child. It was going on the bulletin board. Had to be fairly decent. I sat with them, and depending on the student, some of them we sat together, and I type a lot faster. So for a lot of them, I was doing, tell me what it should say. This is confusing, and let's change this, this, and this. And the thing that blew me away, I didn't know this about this kid. Do you notice he didn't have Wilma Rudolph's name capitalized throughout this whole document? This is a bright kid. He's in 4th grade. And I turned to him, and I was like, Amir, proper nouns get capitalized. He didn't capitalize any of them. He looks at me, I didn't know that. I was like, oh dear God. Like, how did this kid not know that? Well, clearly, he's got some great skills. But had I not been sitting at a computer with him, I don't know that I really would have picked up on that. I think I would have circled a couple and given it back to him. And kids hate rewriting. I found my kids will write so much more because they can type it here. They love it. And I gave them the option. They can write it instead if they want. You know, I wanted them to be comfortable.
I just want to make a quick comment. If you notice on the right side, this is the revision history. What's really, really cool about this is we're not just for the sake of logging in and back and forth in between accounts. I'm just going to talk about it. There's been times where I've shared one document with the whole class. I have 23 students in my class. And you have your jokesters and you have your kids that are going to test you. What's really cool is that there's only 2 names that's on this document because it's only shared between one student and Ms. Stewart, but it lets you know what person made the edit. So let's say a student decides to erase the whole paragraph that I just nicely typed up. It will come up in our kids, their email addresses, so their names aren't on there. They are identified by their student numbers. So you have your kids' student numbers, or however your school sets up their email address. I'm pretty sure there's some way you can identify, but it's really cool for the teacher to know that you can mark their every move, and you can go back and retrace their every step, and although they don't think you can, you can. So I thought that was really cool. And then it actually shows the change. We did something today to change something, and then we brought it back. So here it shows that Ms. Stewart made this change versus the student. Does that make sense?
Except that I'm saying, like, here's all of my conferencing with them. I did not log in. I sat with him at his Google Chromebook and did that with him. And depending on the students, some of them I was kind of, you know how you'll write for students who are having trouble writing down the scribe, and you tell me what the story is, and you write it down, and then you hand them what they said. That's what I was doing when I was typing. So for some kids, I did it at the bottom, and then they inserted it. Others, I kind of just typed as they talked, and then I turned to them, I said, you did do it. Here's what you told me. Just they weren't getting it with the writing.
And there's an alternative to what Ms. Stewart does, which is what I do. So like I said, we are great at collaborating with each other. We do things a lot differently, but we also can learn from each other. And we don't do things differently in a bad way. Okay, so for Ms. Stewart, she conferences more so with the kids with their laptops. Usually what I do is I bring my kids over one-on-one, and I have my laptop and they have theirs. And what happens is I do this with them sometimes, or I do it at home and they can see it the next day. So you can actually enter a comment in, and let's say,
I have a couple.
Okay, so let's say I put Lee's steak. I can send this to him, and when he logs on, he'll see that. What's really, really cool is you can't see it on this screen, but the child can actually say, okay, I fixed it. I'm not sure what you're talking about. So then you can have a conversation without actually having that conversation with them. You can do this. I can be conferencing with one student and also commenting on another student while they're at their desk. There's a lot of ways that you can conference without actually having to sit with the student. And what's really, really cool is my kids are all, some of them will go home and, they'll comment back. So instead of waiting till the next day and I have to talk to them in class, I can get back to them that night, or, they can get up in the morning and look at it. The days that we've had snow days before we went home on Wednesday, the kids, they kind of picked up that we were having a snow day on Thursday. And they're like, oh, can I work on this at home? I'm like, sure you can. And they know that when they work on it at home, I go and I check and I make sure I get back to them. So for me, that's really, really cool because I'm sending this next person.
I was going to show you some more students in here, but in the interest of time, I'm going to move on from this. And I'm going to go into another assignment. And this product that you're seeing, I have this all organized in. working on a poem. It's Maya Angelou's poem. It was park-based. And
And she's pulling this up. These are the kids that are organizing her classes. This is a specific assignment where she's pushed it out to the students. There's a grade, there's comments, and
you can see.
Can I ask a question now? Does each student have to set up an account now? So if you're the word, like, you know what I'm saying, in our school we have, they all have this one technology, they have that. They each have to set up their own account?
They have a Gmail account will enable a lot of this.
So after the school is set up, they can do it?
yeah, we're going to get into
there's two. Every hurdle has a way over, around, or under. There's two different ways you can do it. So you can see I did grade this, and it was the PARC rubric, which is a writing rubric from 0 to 3. So I put that in, and then I started grading them. And so this young lady, so I click on it, and I get her piece. This young lady could not, she's a transfer student, couldn't follow prompt, nothing. And just the fact that this isn't great, but she followed the prompt. That was huge. So the first thing I did is I made one of these comments, and I wrote, you can see how this is highlighted here, about. She wrote, I think the theme is about frightened and scared, but she doesn't want to say because she's trying to act tough, which is exactly what this poem was about. Good for her. But it doesn't make sense the way she wrote it, so I just come over here and put in quotes, add this, here, where I highlighted. The theme is about the speaker being afraid. And then I just said, this makes your ideas make more sense to your reader. And then I threw in, why is the word frightened tactile? Because that's something we've really been working on. I'm going to close this and go back. And you can see this comment. This is a private comment to her. So everyone won't see this. And I wrote, Sanaa, you're doing a much better job of following the prompt and including text support. You can see she got a 1 out of 3. That's not great. But I told her, you would get an A for improvement, which unfortunately wasn't on the rubric, but she needs to know, like for her, this was huge. We need to work on developing her ideas better. More needs to be written about the speaker and how her words, thoughts, and actions tie into the theme, which was the assignment. That's the comment. So you could make a comment inside of the document for them, and they can reply. This is a private comment here, which they can reply to. Over here, you can edit and delete the comments. Students can make comments too. It can be interesting.
and they can't delete.
They can't, but I can. And you can silence them too. What's really been cool is I've used this when I've been absent, and I'll log into my email for whatever reason I'm home, and that's the day, of course, they all decide there's a sub, so they're going to start texting, or it's like texting these comments to them. I think that's why I like it. Silly things. Hi. But that's not what we're doing. So from home, I get an email every time anybody does anything, and I have it set that way. You don't have to do that. And I think it freaked them out. So they know I'm out at home, and I'm emailing back, so they're getting a comment like, that is not what the comment section is for, blah, 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 blah. So I get in the next day, I'm like, I know everything you're doing. And it kind of, that whole like big brother's watching you, they're much more responsible about using it because they know everything's trackable. Yeah, and you can. If you have a kid who just can't handle it, has to keep typing things they shouldn't be, you can silence them if they can't do it anymore. I haven't had to do that yet.
So that's Google Docs, and again, just to reiterate, it's a mirror image of Microsoft Word. So now we're going to get into Google Classroom, which is what you just saw me still working in. It's a free product. It's a free product if you have access to your school's web domain. So this is really tricky because most of the time your IT administrators within the district will set up this account with the student's username and password, and they're pushed out to you. Again, our student username and passwords are very unique. Well, their usernames were very unique because they were attached to their student ID numbers, which they use for lunch, and they use to log in to take certain assessments. So it's really easy for them to remember. Or you could purchase your own domain for $8 a year, but then you would just be limited to just yourself and whoever you put in your class.
And when we decided we wanted to use this, as you can imagine, sometimes it's hard to find out exactly who has responsibility for this address and how do I get this. And again, don't give up, figure something out. And I was looking into the $8 a year. I was like, I don't care, I'll spend $8 a year. I really want to use this product. And down here we have our principal, Ms. Triana. I don't know what he did, but he somehow figured out who to talk to whom and got the rights to it. Because our district had signed up with Google Classroom. We just couldn't find out who knew what to do with what. So before I actually took another pile of money out of my pocket to pay for something else in the classroom, this all fell into place. And it has changed the classroom. And we just showed you writing. I've used it for, actually, let's go back in. We'll show you.
So this is, so this is what Google Classroom kind of looks like in a nutshell.
My classroom.
And again, we're very different. The store has separate classrooms set up for her classroom, if that makes sense.
So first you can see out each subject. I've got something going on in each subject. And then you can see where it's green group, red group. They were small groups that we set up, basically for word work. So each, and you can see how many students are in each one. And so I could push out work for just them.
And what's really cool, I'm just going to use the writing. How they join is once they get their Google email, you prompt them to go to this website, classroom.google.com. Make sure you put a dot in between classroom and Google, because if you don't, it'll take you to a completely different website. And here you'll see a class code where everyone who you would like to join, they put that code in and it automatically takes them to this classroom. There's nothing else they have to do.
It was really neat.
For your students that like to go home and share things with people they shouldn't, you can change this code as soon as they join it, so that way, even if they take this code home and say, hey, Johnny, you want to join my classroom? It'll be changed so they can. And just a quick overview of Classroom. There's a stream which we were recommended when we were in a presentation about this ourselves, to put your assignments, the things that you're going to be working on pretty much whole class. This tab shows your students, and you can know who's joined. You can email them directly from here. Here's an option where, in the Stewart's class, her students are allowed to post and comment. And
These are different kinds of classes this year.
Yeah. Last year, my kids, this option would have been on, but for this year, I had to turn it off. Again, so that's differentiation. And here is about, so pretty much, this is what your class is about. I put a little message on here for my students, but I use this section mainly for rubrics, things that they need to easily access. I put their Ruby vocabulary here, because what happens when you put stuff in a stream, kind of gets lost.
So scrolling that somebody might have to do.
Yeah, it puts it in order from from most recent to the latest. But as your assignments go on, you grade that assignment, you move on. So I would use this mainly for my assignment. You can also make announcements, which I use this for, let's say, a survey purpose. Our kids had to take a school-wide survey, so instead of me writing a long URL across the board, and they missed a letter, or they missed a period, or they missed a slash, I can insert the link. They know when I say, open up your Chromebook, go to Google Classroom, there's a link that says, student take the survey, clicks it, takes it right to them. There's also a section where you can enter an assignment, which is really, really cool, because I can put, let's say I'm doing a writing journal prompt, and I can put the prompt, and I can push out a copy for each student. They don't have to name it, they don't have to save it, they type it, turn it in, it's done. That easy.
Yeah, you can see here, I've got what actually the assignment is, because as soon as I talked about it, we're working, what are we doing? I was like, go back and read it. And I'll help you if you need, but it's all there for them. I don't have to write it on the board. So I'm just going to go back. These are all my classes. Science, I want to show you. I do a lot of finding videos that they can use. And I want to show you one on here. It's an experiment we did. We were working on static electricity. And the experiment was from the show Zoom. Remember the Zoom was like, what, the 70s, 80s, I don't know. And then they came out again when my kids were little. So if you go down here. So we did this experiment. Well, they really understood it a lot more when they watched these kids on Zoom do the experiment first. And then we did the experiment. And then we had all these questions. And then they could come back in here and they could watch the video again as much as they liked. So headsets and all that. And I have a lot of videos now. I've got math, I've got Khan Academy when we did fractions, which we'll get into in our split classroom. So this was, it's there for them. I can take it off if I find that we're done with this, and some kids just want to keep watching something. Now, when I first set this up, as I said, we're all learning. I didn't have all the classrooms, so I just set up our homeroom. We're B15, right? So if I come all the way down here for math, we started working on fraction. We started our unit on fraction. I thought it was here. There we go. So I had some kids who, their background knowledge on fractions was horrible. And I had kids who didn't need it. So now am I going to spend the classroom time? No. So I loaded this in, and there's videos in here where this, how many people are here familiar with Khan Academy? Okay, so if you're not, some kids love it, some don't, but this was another option for them, and it went through the basics of fractions for them. So, and I had kids who watched this over and over again. And we talked about kids loving to give their opinions. That day I let them comment, what did you think? So they were saying, I like the first video better than the second one, or if the sound was up, you'd hear this guy's talking, and he goes through the whole thing. Any topic you want for science and math, I believe you can probably find on Khan Academy. Sometimes it's not the grade level you want. That's my Google Classroom. Do you have any questions about Google Classroom?
I'm sorry if I maybe missed what you said earlier as I was trying to send it to my Gmail account. But how do we set that up exactly?
There's
So
two
we
ways.
get into Google
It's
Drive.
free if you need your IT administrator at your district, because they have access to your district URL. They have to get going.
Okay.
If they don't, you don't know who they are, you know, whatever. You as just a person can set up your own classroom for $8 a year.
And I'll add that, like for us, we already had our own personal Gmail account. When we got our classroom set up, because it was coming from the district, as you can see at the back end of Ms. Stewart's email is at trenton.ksol.nj.us, which is completely separate from her personal, which I like in that way because I don't think that I should have school and the kids' things mixed in with my personal email anyway. So you just have to really get comfortable with being able to tell the difference between the two. I only use my school Google Drive for my kids. My personal, my lesson plans, or whatever documents I'm creating, I use my personal email for that. So that's something that you have to get comfortable with, being able to switch back and forth. But once you have a classroom created, and you would probably use your school's email address, you have your classroom drive, which is separate from your personal drive. So those are the differences between the two. And our students will automatically filter in our drive.
And to find that out, this is like the picture here of what Google Classroom looks like, their opening page. You can just type in Google Classroom in Google, and you'll go to the website and you can find it how to do $8 a year.
And it's really easy to navigate. I know it sounds confusing when it's thrown at you.
It does, because when we went to the training in November, I was like, what?
Yeah, but it's really, really easy to navigate, especially when the students when the students log in, when you log in for the first time, and also when the students log in for the first time, it takes you through a really cool tour. What's good about it is it's short, straight to the point, and it gives you everything you need to know. It highlights specific points, similar to the tour we put in what is Google Drive, but it's really, really easy for you to navigate once you get comfortable with it.
And this next slide kind of leads into the flipped classroom, the buzzword that's out right now. What I just kind of showed you was sort of like that. The traditional classroom is you lecture and the kids go home and do their homework. The conventional flipped classroom is, their homework is they watch a video, could be Khan Academy, could be anything that you found. And then when they come in, they're ready to start an activity and you're teaching through the activity. Well, we know, we're all prior to schools, I'm guessing kids in your classroom who don't have the internet, don't have technology at home, you can't do it that way. So what I did was I kind of modified the flipped classroom, and instead of doing a mini lesson, they went in to Khan Academy, they watched these video, and then I had activities set up in small groups, and as they were done at their own pace watching the video, they would come over, and they're short, they're like 2, 3, 4 minutes. They would come over and we'd get them activities, and then I was able to teach them where they were, educationally wise with fractions, and it was great. Like I don't do it all the time, but it's definitely worth a try. Pick a topic where your kids are kind of all over the place, and let them front load themselves with some great resource you've used, and then work work through the activities that helps you pinpoint where they still need help and where they don't. This whole presentation we just did was a Google slide, which we said at the beginning, which is also called Google presentation. I don't know really why you'll find them called two different things. Same thing, very similar to PowerPoint, but it's free. It saves automatically. All the revisions are there. You can do that same comment chat thing. Like just even last night, we were kind of chatting a little bit about how we wanted to pull up these documents.
Students, it's very easy for them to use. A lot of times you guys have maybe had your students create PowerPoint. This is again very similar to PowerPoint. Down to second grade, we think that students will be able to use. That's how easy it is to navigate. And if you have two students working on, let's say a slide, they're presenting something, you will teach them how to share. You know, what happens when a student, they're working in groups and their partner's not there, and it's like, I'm stuck, I don't know what to do. These are things that can eliminate those problems. You can also, let's just say you want a quiet day, but you still want collaboration. I could be sitting at my desk, and someone could be sitting at her desk, we're working on the same presentation. They can chat within a presentation versus just commenting. So some of the kids aren't really familiar with instant messaging. I did when I was in high school, but I don't think any of them know what instant messaging is. They just consider it texting. But there's a little box that pops up. It was on here earlier. I don't know who was chatting, but you can have that conversation back and forth without a sound in your classroom, if that's how you want to do that.
And just one way I use this, I never use Google Slides, so I put this presentation together. And we were doing foldables in social studies for vocabulary. So I thought, I don't have time to teach my kids how to use Google Slides. So I just started doing my lesson through slides with vocabulary and had them open it and go through it. And they all got it within that first period. And then and I gave them the option, if you still want to do your foldables and your scissors and draw pictures, you can, or you can go on the internet and find pictures of what a plateau is and put it in there and put a definition in your own words. And every one of them was able to do it. Like it really, and again, I did the ask your partner, don't ask me. So once you have a couple of kids who are good at it, they're so happy to help everybody else. And we've also embedded a link in here if you really want to learn how to do the slides. So we want to give her a thank you. Julie is our PSI consultant. She's been awesome. And we were thinking that we're on our 2 years. Is that what it is? 3 years. Has it been 3 years? Yeah. We want to thank Njea and the whole program, and we were hoping they weren't going to leave us in June, so I don't know what's going on. The TEA has been great. They've been supportive of the program and of us doing presentation and Board of Education, and we have both our principal and Ms. Page physically very, very supportive. And probably the thing we're lucky is we have great colleagues, many of whom are here. And that helps. If you want to take chances to try something new and you're not sure what you're going to do, it really helps if you can get a group of people together and kind of work through the hurdles together. And lastly, we have question and answer. Pass Eddie. So hopefully this is helpful.
Yeah, I know it's a lot. Yeah.
How we can get these slides, presentations, Google Drive?
They save automatically. Let me show you how to create it. I guess it will work. So in your Google Drive, so you open up Google Drive, and this create button here lists everything I just talked about. You can create a new folder. Let's say you want language arts, math, science, social studies separated. You have your docs, your presentation. So if you want to create a new presentation, what is important to remember? You want to open up the folder where you want it to save.
Did you want to save this presentation?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
We can copy your presentation.
Yeah.
Over here.
It would be, you couldn't edit it, so go back in.
Just go to file copy.
Yeah, you should be able to file.
Download it.
File, save as, or make a copy, you have to make a copy.
No. But what happened is you would know.
She knows you would know.
It's for some reason not connected. So when you open this up in your own Google Drive, you would have to move it. I don't know why the internet connection is in there, but here where it says move to a folder, you would move it where where you want it saved. So I can't show you here because it's already automatically saved in this folder, but you would move it where you want. So let's say you have your different, I don't know, you might have a PD folder. You would just move it to that folder. But what I was going to go to,
Can someone try it?
while we're working on that, this is where you create all of your document, your presentation, your spreadsheet, and this is exactly where we create our slides.
Is that where you would create your classroom?
No. Your classroom is something completely different. So here's Google Classroom. Let me go back.
Google Classroom's in Google Drive though, no?
Google Drive is within Google Classroom. So, let's go back to her drive. This is her classroom drive. So as you can see, these folders correlate to her classroom that she has. So she has math, science, social studies, writing in 4th grade. Within Google Classroom, there have been folders created automatically. She didn't have to do anything. So her writing in 4th grade, when she opens it up, here's each assignment that she's created. So just like home was an assignment, she opens it up, and here are all the students.
That might be why you can't see it.
Once it goes, you see all the students, and I'll change it back up. This is all the students. This is the name of the assignment and their name, which did not have to be, they didn't have to save it like this. It saves automatically. Once you go into Google Classroom, and you create an assignment, so I'll go back here. And this assignment that's been created, once she pushes this out to her students, it automatically creates a file and a folder, and it automatically creates a file for each student. But what I find is easier, instead of me going back into Google Drive and looking for each student, you can access their work right here from Google Classroom.
Maybe you sometimes I see anything.
So you'll see. I don't think it's there.
Maybe.
Once that loads, you'll see each assignment that's been created for each student. I think this was more so just so they could link it. So you could create an assignment, which they have to reply back to, or you could just create an announcement where you just want them to look at it. Is there any more questions?
Let's thank Mary Beth. Everybody make sure they fill out the evaluation form, and if you don't have your PIN number, just put your first and last name. And I forgot what else I told you this morning. Is there something else to put? Janet, just the first and last name, right?
Yeah.
That's your PIN. That's right, from your Njea card.
You have to send the
124 8th graders, 123 7th graders, 143 6th graders. And our population, 91.9% African American, 7.7% Hispanic, and 0.2% Asian and white. Yeah, okay. Now we want to talk about the interventions, that the techniques that we have taken, that we've taken before becoming a priority school.
Yeah, before we started the STARS program, we took different steps. So we, as you can see here, we took the following: discipline referrals, the test scores, the benchmark scores, and the total number of tardies and absences. So we actually, there's a form that we used. So we would actually gather all that information, and then we would actually call the student in. It's not up. It's not up.
Maybe not this year.
Hey, Pops, keep that beat a beat. I feel a rhythm theme song coming on.
can tell them something now.
There we go.
Hush now, child, and don't cry. Your folks might
There you go.
understand by and by. Just move on up.
Right? Right?
Oh, you may find from time to time complications. Find your love and take the trip. Though there may be that road ahead and you cannot slip, just move on up. A peace will find into the street of you. Though there's only one kind. So hush now, child, and don't cry. Your folks might understand you by and by. Move on up and keep on wishing. Remember your dream and your only scheme. So keep on pushing. Take nothing less than the supreme best. Do not obey, no mistakes say that you can pass the test. Just move on to a greater day. With just a little faith, if you put your mind to it, you can surely do it. Just move on.
Yes.
Is that on YouTube?
Yeah,
It is.
that's
And there's several of them. This one was done by, was it OG or City?
I just wanted to go back to one of these videos. This student in particular had been kicked out of class when I saw her in the hallway, and I just kind of said, I'll take her to my room. And I actually asked her the question, would you want your parents involved more? And the answer I got was surprising.
Do you feel your parents are involved as much as you want them to be involved?
Yes. For instance, they help me with my problems sometimes, and they tell me what not to do, what to do.
Can we turn that up?
Or if I have a problem in school, they tell me what's the situation they do. Go to the teacher or go to your principal and tell them that they're bothering you or they're messing with you. Or they call them names.
So, would you want them to be involved more?
Yeah, honestly, yeah. 'Cause I have sometimes difficulties, like when I'm angry, it's so hard to control it sometimes. Because when they gets me really upset, they really get me upset. And like, I want them to like help me try like just get that stressness off me.
So how could they help you in school with that? What would be a way that they could do that for you?
They could like tell the principal to go to the therapy that Ms. V to help me sometimes. She like questions in classes for that.
Would them actually being in the school, like actually being here, help you think?
Yeah.
Or no?
Yeah, I think so.
Would you like it if they were here in the school once in a while?
Yes, really, yes, for real. Yes. Because sometimes I just too talkative in class and you guys just tell me to shh, shh, I just talk a lot sometimes in class.
So they'll help keep you in line?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That was it. I thought that video of all. I was really surprised by her answers.
Thank you again, everybody. Wonderful, wonderful job. You really inspired me. I hope you enjoyed the rest of the weekend. I thank each and every one of you for coming. We have a special gift bag for our presenters. Or you just want to, the presenters are.
Patty, just sit down.
But you know what's hard in my mind? I don't remember. I mean, I do know, you know what I'm saying? You forget.
You forget that you're not supposed to
Exactly.
just jump up like
Exactly.
that. Thank you.
On behalf of Patty and Priority School.
You go. Thank you, dear.
Oh, wow. Good.
Oh, what's that?
Put a computer.
Oh, yeah, that's what we're
Almost 30.
Yes, we're parents too is on the team. We have some other team members, they're for all the members on the teams. Is anybody else on the teams? Everybody got this very good.
Well, Prime Point would just like to wish Trenton best of luck. Thank you. Email, call, stuff, because we have done it for 3 years and have navigated through a lot of this here. But, and JDA has been a tremendous help.
Well, thank you. Well, I say you make my job easy after today. I've had tremendous, wonderful people to work with. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay.